What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another rookie profile video here, brought to you guys by CampusToCanton.com. I am Matt Bruin. You can find me on Twitter at SportsFanaticMB, one of the co-founders of CampusToCanton.com. Today, we're going to be talking about a quarterback that some people say are quarterback 1, QB3 for this whole class, right? We talked a little bit about it with Sam Howell last week, Desmond Ridder earlier this year. This quarterback class is kind of all over the place, but he is currently my quarterback 1, based on my grading system, which you guys will obviously see here at the end of the video. But before you do that, we are trying to grow our YouTube channel. We would appreciate any likes, any comments, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell icon. It would mean the world to us if you guys could continue to grow with us. We love when you guys comment in the videos, tell me, what I did wrong on some of these videos when we do our Mock Draft Monday videos, who you guys would have taken, who you think I took too high. It's been a lot of fun growing this channel, and we appreciate every single like, subscribe that we can get. So subscribe to the channel if you guys don't mind. So for today, we're going to discuss Corral's stats, his advanced stats. I'm going to go through some video stuff that I put together based on some plays I think he does well, some of the things I think he does poorly, and then we will talk about his pros and cons, which is new on this Matt Corral video, and we will jump into his grades. So let's take a look at Matt Corral's stats for last year. All right, so we are going to look at here his stats for, I believe, the 2021 season. Now, usually, if you guys have watched the Desmond Ridder and the Sam Howell video, which I appreciate, you guys, I'm very appreciative of the love you guys have given me on those videos. I usually have myself somewhere on here. I'm going to take my ugly mug off the screen, and we're just going to look straight at the stats. So let's pull up what he did in his class rank here first, because I want to show you guys just how good he has been based on all the other quarterbacks in his class. He has a 66.7 completion percentage, which finished third, 8,292 passing yards, really only starting as the main starter for Ole Miss for about 2 years. His sophomore season, which was the first year he was a starter for Ole Miss, he was splitting time still. So that's still, to me, pretty impressive, and finishes the 5th ranked quarterback in this class. There are only 10 now, as when I first did this with Desmond Ridder, Tanner McKee, I believe it not declared yet. He did end up going back to Stanford. So there are really only 10 quarterbacks that are likely, within draftable range. So this is out of 10 here. 9.0 YPA, which finished third, 57-22 touchdown to interception ratio, which finished sixth. Big time throws. What are big time throws? Talk about it every video. It is a play that you're not expected to complete, or like is a big third down play, fourth down play, big play that goes for a touchdown. He had 51 over his career, 7th in this class. Turnover-worthy plays. Sounds pretty easy, but just in case you don't know, anything that should have been a turnover, whether it was a fumble that you lost that maybe one of your teammates picked up, an interception that you should have thrown where it hits the defender in the hands, they just drop it. 36th, 5th. That's not half, right? Finished right in the half part of the class. 9.8, where he finished 6th. Adjusted completion percentage, that is them adjusting for wide receivers who possibly dropped the ball, or there was some reason that they didn't catch it when they should have. 76.2, so that's very, very good. Time to throw, 2.72 seconds. For that, 5th in the class, and that is, again, just how much time they have to throw the ball. The more time, the better, obviously. Finished 5th. QBR at a 74.2, which was 5th, and EPA 287, which was 9th. The EPA may not look off here, but if you watch the Sam Howell and the Desmond Ridder videos, you saw how high theirs were. That is because I do combine multiple years. I combine every year they put up an EPA in our system and then divide it by those years so that we can see what their EPA, I just add them all up together. Again, really only started 2 years. That's pretty decent, but did finish 9th in the class. And then QBR, same thing. That's where I divide by the amount of years, 74.2, which finished 5th. Let's take a look now here at what he was able to do in his 2021 season. Finished with a 66.6 completion percentage, 21st in college, 3,351 passing yards, 17th, 20 passing touchdowns. Again, big-time throws. 18 of those 50 came this year. It was 40, 4.3% of his throws, 50th in college. Turnover worthy plays, 10 of the 36 here this year. 2.2% of his throws, 90th, which is obviously great. There's like 136 schools, so 90 is pretty darn good. The lower you are on that list, the better. A.dot 8.5, adjusted completion percentage 77.2, time to throw 2.65 seconds, and then again his QBR this year was 89.9, which was the first out of the 10 draftable quarterbacks, and his EPA was 207 just this year. Third out of the 10 quarterbacks in this class. Let's take a look at his pocket stats here, what he was able to do in the pocket. He was sacked 0 times when in a clean pocket. That is good. We saw Sam Howell just 1. I did not do that for Ritter, but I'll get to that and post that stuff at some point. 73.1 completion percentage, 2,906 yards, 18-1 touchdown to interception ratio. Pretty good. Passing under pressure, he would 15.4% of his pressures turned into sacks when he was under pressure. That turned into, as you can see there, 21 sacks. Completed just 42% of his passes, 445 yards, 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. That's a big thing there with under pressure. Still an 8.8 A.dot, which I think is interesting, and an adjusted completion percentage of 62.1. So still very good so far out of everybody I've done. That's one of the better sets. Sam Howell was sacked more. Ritter wasn't, but his completion percentage was not quite that good. Did have more yards, better touchdown interception ratio. Typically, the passing under pressure is where you see the worst QB stats about the pocket stuff, because blitzing, any quarterback, I guess, worth his salt, worth his moxie, typically they're going to throw into blitzes, or if the coaching staff sees it, however, they get out of it and they're able to get the ball off. And as you can see here, 22.8% of his pressures turned into sacks, 13 of them. Did complete 61.5% of his completion percentage, though, 887 yards, 9 for 3 on the touchdown to interception ratio, and a 72.1 completion percentage, adjusted completion percentage. So even when being blitzed, he was still fairly good. Again, just under pressure. And then we'll see kind of how Corral also gets out of that, because he is very good at that as well. And then let's take a look at his deep passing really quick before we move on to the advanced stats. 40.4, 54th in college. And deep passing, because just in case anybody is not sure, that's anything over 20 yards. Any pass completion, even if it's 21 yards, anything over 20 yards is considered a deep pass. He passed for 799 yards, which was 40th, 7 touchdowns, 45th, big time throws, 17, which was 27.9% of them, 39th. Turnover worthy plays 3, 4.9%, 65th, A.dot 34.0. So I like to bring this up again because that's third in college. Why that matters to me, we saw it with Sam Howell as well. He was right around, I believe it was 31. So they're throwing well beyond that 20-yard mark, where Desmond Ritter, if I'm remembering correctly, his was like 24. So he wasn't throwing much past the 20-yard mark. You're talking deep passing when you're throwing 30-something plus yards and you're putting up some of these stats. That's his A.dot. Sam Howell was right around the same thing. You like to see, obviously, the further down, or just shows that they can pass the ball competently further down the field. Adjusted completion percentage was 42.3, 69. Nice. 69th in college. All right, let's take a look at his advanced stats here, and we are going to start with QBR. So with the advanced stats, what I do, we have these wonderful metrics, player metrics tool that Jarek Backus has built into the website from a database that he gets. I don't understand any of that stuff. I just know that this stuff's important. QBR and EPA are the most projectable toward the NFL, so I'm told. So what we are going to do here, we're going to look at the 22, his entire class, outside of Bailey Zappi, because he only spent the 1 year at Western Kentucky. So a lot of that stuff when he was in the FCS does not show up in databases, so we can't really calculate that. We're going to do the QBR and the EPA. We're also going to do adjusted yards per for the 2022 class. And then I'm going to put Matt Corral in with the 2021 quarterbacks and the 2020. I like to look at multiple classes just to see how he would rate. So let's do it. Let's look at the 2022 QBR. So here is everybody. If you've been watching these videos, you know I've done these each time and shown you guys this stuff. I mean, again, you can see in his second year there, if you're looking, he's right there with Kenny Pickett and Desmond Ritter. And again, that's just because I was splitting time with John Reese Plumlee, who is now gone. He's moved on to a different team. There's talks he may even play wide receiver. So that's kind of why his was so far down there, the QBR. Year 3, you see he had the best out of everybody in this class outside of Kenny Pickett, which, he had an interesting one there in in his 5th year, but Matt Corral had the highest out of everybody. That's what I brought up earlier on that one slide. 89.9 was the highest out of the entire class, and that was again in his 3rd year. 4th year, he drops down, and you can see that line right there, the little dotted line in the middle of the graph, or the higher end of the graph, I'm sorry, and you can't see what it says because the names are in the way, but it says average of quarterbacks finishes a top 12 NFL season, meaning most quarterbacks who finished above that line within those certain years will give you a QB1 season in the NFL for fantasy. So let that sit for a minute, how important that is. So, I mean, it's a big deal to finish above that line. Obviously, you'd love to see your quarterbacks finish above that line multiple years in a row, but for Matt Corral to finish that high up in the 3rd year, I think is big, and then unfortunately fell down below that in his 4th year, which was this past season. Let's take a look at his EPA. EPA does factor in the rushing side of things as well, which is why you're going to see some of these guys who rush have much higher seasons. I do think that that's really impressive when you look at year 4 and 5, what Kenny Pickett and Carson Strong were able to do, because they don't rush that much. Don't let Kenny Pickett's fake slide fool you. He is not a big rushing quarterback, but we'll get to a Kenny Pickett video here eventually. Matt Corral in years 3 and 4, really good, right? Top of the chain there in year 3. Now, granted, that's also Carson Strong and Desmond Ritter's final year. Now, Carson Strong and Malik Willis, their 3rd years, technically was their 4th, if that makes sense, because they started a year ahead of Matt Corral. So they did finish above him in this class on the EPA, and then obviously you look all the way over to year 5 and what those guys were able to do. Matt Corral in year 4, right under Carson Strong, and technically Kenny Pickett, because that was his 5th season. A little confusing, but Matt Corral still 2 really good years to finish off his career. Adjusted yards per. Just been told this is a really good thing to look at for quarterbacks, so I decided to put this in coming into the Matt Corral video here. Obviously, again, that first year season, year 2, not great. Again, I think a lot of it's just because he was not the main starter. Year 3, really good, best of everybody but Caleb Ellaby, and we'll eventually do one on Caleb Ellaby. I'm not sure how much NFL upside he has, but we're not doing Caleb Ellaby right now. Then year 4, below Caleb Ellaby and Dustin Crum, who had that amazing season there in 2020 COVID year. Let's take a look at the 2021 season now. So again, I like to compare these guys to the previous classes and where they stack up. In Matt Corral's best season, which was year 3, that was Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, and Trevor Lawrence's junior seasons, the year before they came out into the NFL. He was right there, above Zach Wilson, above Trevor Lawrence, and above Justin Fields. He finished above Trevor Lawrence every single year in adjusted QBR. Now, am I telling you, and technically above Zach Wilson, am I telling you that Matt Corral is better than Zach Wilson and Trevor Lawrence? No, I am not. But I do, again, this is projective toward NFL success. We've done Desmond Ridder, and we have done Sam Howell. Neither one of them finished as high as Matt Corral has, and I think that's going to explain a lot more when we get further into this on my feelings on Matt Corral. 21 EPA. Again, you see the same thing here. The rushing, a big deal. See Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence above him in that 3rd year. And then him having a fairly decent, again, year 4. Mac Jones, that was just his amazing season with Alabama. Going to adjusted yards per now. Again, same thing. Like up there, Zach Wilson, really good. Mac Jones, Trevor Lawrence, and he actually was just ahead of Justin Fields in that season. So again, really good year. Again, Justin Fields only played in, I believe that was 8 games. That was the COVID season for all of those guys there. And I decided to add Davis Mills on here as well, just because he did have a good season. And you guys can now as well. If you look over on the year 4th, and you can see average of quarterbacks with the top 12 NFL season on that dotted line. Again, that's what that means. You want to finish above that as many times as you can. Matt Corral did it twice in most of these categories. So that's pretty cool. Let's take a look at the 2020 class really quick. And as you can see, only Tua Tagovailoa came in above him in that year 3 range. That was the 2 seasons, 2 ahead that were just amazing seasons with Alabama. And again, you'd still like to see it earlier. Justin Herbert, 2 great seasons and fell off in his junior and sophomore season, but he was above that line those first 2. Jalen Hurts almost crossed it year 1, jumps it as is 2 in year 2. Again, that matters breaking out earlier, as I say, and then if you look at and I always love to talk about Joe Burrow, just like sitting up there with his 1 year. Incredible season. All right, so let's take a look at the 20 EPA. Again, same thing, right there with Tua, Justin Herbert, just below Jalen Hurts. in year 4. Really good season for him on the EPAs there. And then last but not least, adjusted yards per with this class. Really, just above Justin Herbert. Hill, again, crosses that line for 2 years in a row. Almost does it as a sophomore first-year starter, splitting time, which you definitely like to see. Oh, excuse me. I tried to mute myself for that cough, and I'm not sure I got all of it. All right, so let's take a look now at the video and what just kind of some of the stuff that I do and don't like here about Matt Corral. Now, this ends up being an incompletion, but I just want to show you guys something really quick. Of course, I hit the wrong button. That makes sense, right? What I like about this is he steps up in the pocket and fires it. I think it just shows a little bit of his arm strength. He doesn't have the best arm in this class, but I do think that he is... It's above average, right? Like, he can get the ball down the field. He can sling it a little bit. Got some decent zip on the ball. And I think this is fairly well thrown. Maybe he could have led the receiver a little bit. I think it was just great coverage. But just wanted to show that one a little bit with him stepping up in the pocket. All right, with this play right here, I think a lot of it is just, again, his great ball placement. Now, granted, when we get the reverse angle of this, you're going to see how great of a play this was by the wide receiver. But still, like, it's still a great throw to be able to put it here for only his wide receiver to get it right here. If you just watch this, I mean, that's backside. Granted, again, see where the wide receiver position is, back shoulder. Like, this is a beyond amazing catch. The wide receiver makes that play, but still, you got to get it there for the wide receiver to be able to make that play. And again, same thing here. Just drops it in the bucket, and the wide receiver drops the ball. So that goes into that adjusted completion percentage, right? Like, this is on 4th down, too. This is a big play. And yet Matt Corral does everything right here. Like, you can't put this on him, right? He steps up, moves it. Like, you're moving sideways when you're doing this too, right? Like, let's rewind it here when he makes this throw. He's got the rushers. The guy's coming in right. Guy gets around the offensive line there, and he's moving to his left. Makes a throw off balance, and look at this. I mean, it's there to his wide receiver. The wide receiver drops it. So, again, I think that just shows how good of a passer Matt Corral can be at times, especially when he's allowed to move around the pocket. Doesn't necessarily need to set his feet. Again, granted, I like to put some of these in there. Did it with Sam Howell, Desmond Ridder. I get it. Wide receiver, wide open. But what we see with Desmond Ridder when we did this, he missed those multiple times. You like to see the quarterbacks be able to hit their guys in stride. It's a big play for Matt Corral right there. I like it. Just able to kind of sling it down the field. He does get a clean pocket in this one, so he's able to just kind of grip it and rip it him ahead all day, right? Just fires it. You'd love to see him obviously get that a little bit more with what the wide receiver was running his route to kind of get it into the touchdown, but still. Again, same thing here. This I love. Just great zip. Right into the middle of the field, hits his wide receiver defenders all around him, is able to zip it in there. I think he's got really good velocity on his balls in the short and intermediate area. And you see right here, just like the defenders right there, you've got to get that to your wide receiver quickly. Great job by him. Right, almost practically right in the fucking, right, excuse me, language, right in the box. On this one here, so same thing. I know that it ends up being a penalty on the defender here for defensive pass interference. But again, I want to show you because we always talk about how these quarterbacks, like, feet need to be set. They need to do perfect mechanics. And I do think Matt Corral has really good mechanics. But if you watch this throw, he's got the defender coming onto him, right? So he knows he's got to step up. And he just kind of fires it off of his front foot, and still very good throw. A 30, 40-yard throw right there. And it's in stride with his wide receiver. So I do like that. Here we go. We get to see a little bit of Matt Corral improvising, avoiding the rush, and getting the ball. That is something he is very good at doing, is buying time. He is very athletic. We're going to see some rushing plays here. Another really good play I like from him. Zips it in there. Defender, I mean, he's the wide receiver has his defender beat here. It's still a very good throw, in my opinion, to kind of squeeze it. It's not as tight a window because the safety is not necessarily right over him, but he's coming over there. Still a really good throw. I think he guides it in there very well. I like that throw from Matt Corral, getting it over to the other sideline. All right, so here we get to see, again, him check down. This is important to me because he did not do this I shouldn't say at all. He did not do it much in 2020. In 2020, that COVID season, we would see Matt Corral run with it or try and force a ball in somewhere. If you watch this play, he clearly goes through his progressions and then dumps it off to the running back. I like that. We want to see more of that from Matt Corral. As you can see, he's looking right here in the middle of the field and then goes and sees nothing there. And again, I understand that it's not a great gain. Ends up being like a 1 yard gain. But in the NFL, that matters because you can't get the big play every single time. And even on this being a 3rd and 10, like, I get it. He doesn't get the first down. Not a sexy play, but that doesn't matter. Like, he doesn't throw an interception. He doesn't force anything. He just says, hey, you know what? My guys are covered. You can see his head kind of moving around there. And then he goes, I'm just going to dump it down. It's not a sexy play, but that matters. You want to see him be able to go through his progressions and dump the ball off. He's done that a lot more in 2021 than he did in 2022. Here we get to see the rushing upside. So he's very good, very athletic, very mobile. My biggest concern with him, and we'll talk a little bit more about it when we get to the cons, he was listed at playing at like almost 200. There's a lot of rumors that he was actually playing at 190. I don't want to see him play at that like slight of frame. That to me is a little bit scary. But we'll see, right? Because he didn't really, I mean, unfortunately got injured in the bowl game, but like outside of that, he didn't really have a lot of injuries. He was listed at 6'1", 205, and the rumors are that he played around 109. But I mean, right there, right? 190, not 109. 190 takes the defender on, knocks him down, gets big yards. Like, if he can do that in the NFL, it's not a big issue, but you prefer him to be closer to 200 than 190 when he's, especially when he's running like this, right? Like taking that, dropping his shoulder, taking on the defender. You want him to be closer to 200 pounds, than 190. All right, so right here, again, what Matt Corral does well. He is able to buy time and kind of make a big play here for a touchdown, which you just like to see. He's very good buying time and actually runs it in for a touchdown. You've got some other ones here where he doesn't run it in. He actually throws it, which I think is better. You want to see these quarterbacks make plays with their arms more often than their legs, right? All right, so here is some of the... Oh, another great play. I'm sorry. And the wide receiver drops it here. I thought we were getting to the bad plays. There's really not much bad to say about Matt Corral. It's all kind of wrapped up into two things. Avoids the rush here. I mean, if I'm remembering this correctly, it looks like the rusher practically gets right through the line, right? Matt Corral kind of gets around, dances back there, and that should be a completed play. Wide receiver, yeah, he's got to jump up and make it, but still should have caught that pass. Here's Matt Corral again, just throwing on the run. Nice play. Easy touchdown for him. You're going to see him do this a lot. He does a lot of RPO stuff, which is kind of a concern going into the NFL because we don't know exactly if he's going to be able to do that. Here, he ends up making the play, right? Like, he finds his wide receiver open on the sideline, and that's great. I don't know that he's going to be able to get that much time sometimes in the NFL. At this point, I think you'd rather him throw it or just get rid of it, but he sticks with the play, and he gets a big play, right? Gets it to his wide receiver. That's what you like to see. All right, so for this now, again, nice, just quick check down. Does get his receiver here kind of destroyed. But again, check down. I just kind of wanted to throw this in there again to show to you guys he does a much better job of working through and getting his check downs. And that right there. I want to show you guys this really quick. I kind of forgot about that. We're going to watch it from this angle. Matt Corral is very good at pump fakes, and I think that's going to matter when he gets to the NFL. He is, like, very violent. He sells his pump fakes really well, which I was not expecting. You see it a lot on some of the other films, like, right there. Like, he sells those pump fakes and then ends up throwing it to the same receiver anyways. But he's just very good quick release here. I just wanted to show you guys how quick he is at getting the ball. There's two really good plays here, excuse me, that I like from Matt Corral. And it's a nice little arm angle throw right there, too, as well, avoiding both those defenders that he's got in his throwing window. And then we're going to see an even better one here in just a second. This, I just like the... For me, it's a little bit of a very nice touch throw with some decent pace on it. You've got the linebacker here for, I think this is the Auburn game, dropping back a little bit. And look at that. I mean, You think when you're watching this right now that the defender is going to get it, but it's just enough touch and pace over to get past the defender. I like that a lot, and he does that more often than I give him credit for sometimes. So here's some of the bad stuff with Corral. There's a few times I feel like he doesn't necessarily get rid of the ball sooner. Maybe he doesn't see. I mean, he sees the guy coming in for the blitz right there and doesn't really check out at anything. I don't know if he's allowed to. It's different with every offense, right? But you'd like to see him get rid of the ball quicker there. Here, I mean, he's got nothing but time. And so the one thing I'll say about this play, I don't work at Ole Miss. I am not a quarterback. I don't know that this play isn't designed to go to the wide receiver here. But I feel like he could have led him a little bit, or right there, number 10. I mean, he's open. If he leads him right in the middle of the field here, as you're about to see, like, the corner is gone, right, with that guy. I think if you lay that out right here in the middle of the field on this right hash, that's probably a touchdown, because 10's got his defender beat right there in the middle field. Instead, he goes all the way across there. Again, that may have been the read. I don't know. I'm not a part of this offense. I'm not calling plays. I'm not Lane Kiffin's coaching staff. So I could be wrong there. It's just something I noticed when watching that stuff, and I wanted to point out. I feel like sometimes he misses reads, but again, I'm not a part of that offense, so he could have been the fourth read on that play, and I don't know that. So I can't say for sure that that's exactly what he's doing. This play, though, I think it's a bad throw. Why are you doing that? Your wide receiver's double covered. Don't force anything down the field. This was from 2020, where he did have multiple games of throwing like 2 interceptions. So that part of it again, I'm sorry, this is from 2021, but in 2020, he had multiple games of throwing 4 or 5 interceptions. There's sometimes he just makes, I think, the wrong decision. But again, it comes back to, that's just me looking at plays and getting hindsight 2020, right? Like, I know how the play works out, so I can say it's a bad play. Like that right there. Safety over the top. That should have been an interception. You shouldn't make this throw, in my opinion. You should not be making this throw. Can't make this throw in the NFL. Chances are this is going to be intercepted. You've got the safety right there. I mean, he's just waiting in the middle of the field. You can't make that throw. Here's another one. Buys, running across. Doesn't, I'm guessing, see the linebacker. Maybe he thought that he peeled off on the receiver, or is not running with him. He does definitely got to get the ball quickly. He's got the linebacker coming down on him. Throws it. The cornerback, just breaks in on the route, interception, takes it to the house. Like, you can't do that. Can't make that decision. This is one of his big, and this was a 2020 game. This is where he throws multiple interceptions. Same thing here, right? Now, I could understand with all of the kind of congestion right there around the line of scrimmage, maybe he doesn't see the trailing cornerback, but he's got to see the safety over the top. So maybe because he doesn't see the trailing cornerback here on the side of the field, that's why it throws an interception. But I mean, that's an easy ball for the defense. Like, you can't make that throw. You just can't, in my opinion. I mean, he's got the guy right in his face, gets hit as he lets it go. But I just think overall that's a bad play. Same thing here. He's got nothing but time. You see all the defenders, and the one bad part is you don't get really a reverse angle of this as well. But it's right into his defense. I mean, that defender is running the route for the wide receiver, is what they say, right? Like, he runs this perfectly. He fires it. I mean, the defender's right there. Like, you can't make, especially in the red zone, you cannot make that throw. So, oh, hey, there's me, really little. I was supposed to be big. There we go. So that's some of the stuff I've got on Matt Corral there. I like his accuracy. He is typically fairly accurate. He's done a better job recently doing that. I think he does a good job manipulating the pocket. He's got very good mobility, decent arm strength in the short and intermediate areas, and he can get the ball deep. Mentioned mobility. Do like his release. I think it's quick. Some of that I think is helped out by the RPO game. They do run a lot of RPOs, but his quick release works well with that. I think he shows decent poise in the pocket. Doesn't necessarily... we saw a couple plays there when he's pressured. He ends up throwing interceptions, but there's a lot of other plays on film where he finds time, buys time, makes a big play like we talked about earlier. Decision-making, I think, has improved, and working through his progressions, decision-making and progressions, I think, has improved over a year. In 2020, multiple games with a lot of interceptions, didn't check the ball down that much. This year, there was a lot of instances where he checked the ball down, and he eliminated those multiple turnover games, so I think that was big for him. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at his grades. Again, pros and cons here really quick. As I mentioned, quick release, pocket manipulation, short area accuracy, mobility, passing on the run. My cons, deep ball. I just think too often he forces the ball deep when he doesn't need to, makes some bad decisions going deep. Arm strength. As I showed, Can get the ball deep, worry a little bit about it there compared to some of the other guys in his class. Decision-making in 2020. Again, we saw in 2021 he eliminated those multiple interception games, and I felt like did a better job of going through progressions, but we did see what he did in 2020, so can we completely eliminate his decision-making? And then wait, that is a big concern for me. Now, I'm not comparing him to Lamar Jackson, but we all said the same thing about Lamar, right? How skinny he was. He's not going to hold up with the way he runs the ball. He's been just fine. Now, Lamar outweighs Matt Corral by a decent mark there. So, again, Matt Corral was listed at 205 this year, but rumors are he played around 190. Lamar was 211. So if Matt Corral, which we'll see at the Combine here in a couple weeks, if he comes in even like at 200, I'm okay with that. If he's going to be playing around 200, I'm good with that. Let's take a look finally at his grades here. As I mentioned, I grade in tiers of 5. For me, it's just a little bit easier. I know some people do 10s, everything else. I like to try and keep my number under 100. So I grade my guys in tiers of 5 with the grading system that is... I had some stats people help me out. It's somewhat complicated, or I think it is, but then again, I'm a big dumb idiot. So arm, I gave him a 3.95 overall, 4.1 accuracy, and a 3.8 on strength. Pocket, 3.9. I think he's very good at manipulation and poise. Again, 5 being the best. So as you can see here, really only 3 categories: mobility, mechanics, and accuracy. I gave him over a 4, which in me is like in top tier of football. Gets a 3.9 overall in the pocket, 4.15 for his legs because of 4.1 mobility and mechanics. I do think he's got really good mechanics. And then what I consider the head decision-making and progressions, I gave him a 3.8 and a 3.9. All together came out at a 79.3. That is my highest out of all the quarterbacks. I've done 4. You'll see my next video, which is on Malik Willis. I've graded him out as well. He is currently my highest quarterback graded. It's still a tier 2 grade. I had to redo. Sam Howell came in at a 76.1, so not much below him. And then Desmond Ridder, who I did before, came in at a 71. How my tiers work, it is, again, a scores out of 100. Tier 1 is 100 to 88. Tier 2, 88 to 75. Tier 3 is 75 to 65, and then anything lower than 65 is a Tier 4. Honestly, guys, I don't want anything to do with. I mentioned earlier that he had better seasons than Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson, and I said I'm not comparing them. Zach Wilson actually came in lower, 79.1, then compared to Matt Corral's, again here, 79.3. So I do think they are close and similar in my opinion. Zach Wilson had a much better final season, really kind of final 2-ish sort of, than Matt Corral did. I really like Matt Corral. I think he's got a future in the NFL. I would not be surprised if he's not the best quarterback and most consistent quarterback in this class. Again, big concern for me is RPO. Does he go to a team that runs a lot of RPO schemes? A team that I think would be a great fit for him would be the New Orleans Saints. We know that Sean Payton's gone, but the offensive coordinator that has taken over was there, learned under Sean Payton, and I think that a lot of talk is they're going to try and keep around the same offense. I think he's obviously a 10 times better passer than Taysom Hill. He doesn't have the speed and the legs that Taysom Hill does, but it's not much below what Taysom Hill can do. If they continue to use that RPO scheme, I think Matt Corral could kill it in New Orleans, but I do think he's got to go to a team like that, or whatever team he does go to, can they implement some of that into their game plan? Can he work through that? We'll see. Just want to say thank you guys so much. I'm a little under the weather, so I apologize if you guys heard my coughing and sniffles, but I wanted to continue to get these videos out here for you guys. We're getting closer to the Combine, closer to the NFL Draft. Thank you guys so much for watching this. Again, if you guys can, comment in the video, tell me what you do and don't like about Matt Corral. Give us a like. Those likes matter. And then if you guys are liking this content, subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell icon so you know when every single one of these videos goes live. And talk to you guys again soon. Next video coming up is Malik Willis, quarterback out of Liberty.